What if the biggest lie you were ever told about life and success was quietly taught to you while sitting inside a classroom? From childhood, we are taught a simple formula: go to school, study hard, get good grades, and find a safe job with benefits. We then spend 40 or 50 years working for money, believing this path guarantees security and comfort. Yet despite following all the rules, millions of hardworking people struggle financially every single day. They live paycheck to paycheck, fear bills, and wonder why money never seems to stay. This struggle is not caused by laziness, lack of intelligence, or poor work ethic. The real reason is simple and uncomfortable. Schools teach us how to work for money, but never how to make money work for us. Welcome to Rich Dad Poor Dad, a story that is not just about finances, but about freedom. This book is built around the lives of two fathers, two belief systems, and two very different financial destinies. Robert Kiyosaki grew up influenced by his biological father, whom he calls his poor dad, and the father of his best friend, whom he calls his rich dad. Poor dad was highly educated, held a respected government position, and earned a good income throughout his career. Despite his intelligence and hard work, poor dad struggled financially and left behind unpaid bills when he passed away. Rich dad, by contrast, never finished 8th grade and never held a traditional secure job. Yet rich dad became one of the wealthiest men in Hawaii and left behind businesses, assets, and financial security for generations. Both men were successful in their professions and worked extremely hard throughout their lives. The difference between them was not effort or intelligence, but how they thought about money. Poor dad believed that the love of money was the root of all evil. Rich dad believed that the lack of money was the root of all evil. Poor dad often said, "I can't afford it," and treated money as something to avoid. Rich dad banned those words and replaced them with a powerful question: how can I afford it? When you say "I can't afford it," your brain shuts down and the conversation ends. When you ask "how can I afford it," your brain is forced to think, search, and create solutions. One habit shuts the mind down, while the other strengthens financial intelligence. This single difference in thinking leads to completely different financial outcomes over a lifetime. At just 9 years old, Robert was forced to choose which voice he would listen to about money. He chose to stop following the advice of job security and start learning financial education. That choice is the reason this book exists and why you are listening today. You are here because you sense that the old rules of money are no longer working. In the chapters ahead, you will unlearn what school never taught you about wealth. You will learn the difference between assets and liabilities, why the rich don't work for money, and how to build lasting financial freedom. The rich do not become wealthy by accident, but by thinking differently from everyone else. The only question that remains is this: which dad will you choose to listen to? Before we move into the first lesson, remember that this audiobook is created to help you understand money in a clearer and more practical way. If these ideas are helping you think differently about finances and freedom, your support makes a real difference. Please like this video so more people can discover these lessons and begin their own learning journey. Share it with someone who works hard but feels stuck financially, because one idea can change a lifetime. And subscribe to the channel for more audiobooks and practical lessons on money, mindset, and long-term success. Now, take a deep breath, keep an open mind, and let's begin the first lesson. Chapter 1. The Rich Don't Work for Money. Welcome to Chapter 1, where we confront the most uncomfortable truth about money. Most people spend their entire lives working hard, yet never escape financial stress. From childhood, we are taught to seek security by finding a good job, earning a steady paycheck, and hoping that loyalty and hard work will protect us. But instead of freedom, this path often leads to a never-ending cycle of work, bills, and quiet anxiety. People wake up every morning, rush to work, pay their expenses, and repeat the same routine for decades, believing this is just how life works. This exhausting cycle has a name, and Rich Dad called it the rat race. The rat race begins with fear, the fear of not having enough money to survive. When bills arrive and money runs low, fear pushes people to find a job or work harder. For a short time, the paycheck makes that fear disappear, but once the money arrives, desire quickly takes over. People start thinking about bigger houses, newer cars, better clothes, and a more comfortable lifestyle. As expenses increase, fear returns, stronger than before, forcing people to work even harder just to maintain what they already have. This endless loop of fear and desire keeps people trapped, no matter how much money they earn. Rich Dad taught that the problem is not work itself, but working only for money. To explain this lesson, Robert shares a story from his childhood when he was just 9 years old. Robert attended a public school filled with children from wealthy families, but he and his best friend Mike were not rich. Confused and frustrated, Robert once asked his teacher when they would learn about money in school. The teacher replied that money was not part of the curriculum. That moment revealed a painful truth. Schools train students to become employees, not financially free individuals. Robert went home and asked his poor dad how to become rich. Poor dad, though highly educated, gave a vague answer, telling him to use his head and study hard. Unsatisfied, Robert and Mike decided to take the advice literally and find a way to make money. Their first attempt involved collecting old toothpaste tubes, melting the metal, and casting fake coins, unknowingly breaking the law. When poor dad discovered what they were doing, he stopped them immediately and explained the difference between making money and counterfeiting it. Then he gave Robert advice that changed everything. If you want to learn how to be rich, talk to Mike's dad. Mike's dad was not famous, highly educated, or powerful, but he owned businesses and understood money. When the boys approached him, he did not give them a lecture or simple answers. Instead, he offered them a job. Every Saturday, they would work for 3 hours cleaning one of his convenience stores. The pay was 10 cents an hour, which was extremely low even at that time. Robert accepted the job, believing that the real reward would be knowledge, not money. After several weeks of hard, boring work, frustration began to build. Robert missed his baseball games and gave up his free time, only to earn a few cents. Angry and feeling cheated, Robert decided to quit and demand a raise. When he confronted Rich Dad, he accused him of being unfair and greedy. Rich Dad calmly replied that Robert now sounded exactly like most employees. He explained that life pushes everyone around, but people respond differently to that pressure. Some quit, some complain, and others learn. Rich Dad told Robert that blaming others gives away personal power, while taking responsibility creates growth. Then Rich Dad made a shocking offer. He told Robert to return to work, but this time for no pay at all. Working without money forced Robert to stop focusing on his paycheck and start paying attention to his surroundings. Without the distraction of wages, his mind became open to opportunities he had never noticed before. One day, Robert realized that unsold comic books at the store were being thrown away. He asked if he could have them, and the store manager agreed. Using those discarded comics, Robert and Mike created a small comic book library. They charged other children a small admission fee to read as many comics as they wanted. Soon, the library was earning far more money than their original job, and it worked even when they were not there. For the first time, Robert experienced money working for him instead of him working for money. This lesson revealed a powerful truth. Assets generate income whether you are present or not. Rich Dad explained that employees focus on wages, while the rich focus on building assets. When people work only for money, fear controls their decisions. But when people learn to build assets, they gain freedom and choice. Chapter 1 teaches that a job may provide short-term security, but it is not a long-term solution to financial independence. The rich do not work harder than everyone else. They simply build systems that make money work for them. Understanding this difference is the first step toward escaping the rat race forever. Chapter 2. Why teach financial literacy? Imagine someone winning millions of dollars overnight through a lottery, a sports contract, or sudden fame, and believing they are set for life. At first, everything looks perfect as they buy expensive homes, luxury cars, and gifts for friends and family. But a few years later, many of these people are broke, buried in debt, and wondering how all the money disappeared. This happens not because they lacked money, but because they lacked financial intelligence. Rich Dad taught that it is not how much money you make that matters, but how much money you keep and how hard it works for you. Most people believe their financial problems would disappear if they simply earned more money. In reality, earning more without financial literacy often leads to bigger problems, not freedom. To explain this, Rich Dad compared wealth building to constructing a building. If you want to build something small, a weak foundation might survive. But if you want lasting wealth, you need a deep and strong financial foundation. Financial literacy is that foundation. Rich Dad defined financial literacy as understanding how money flows through your life. He emphasized one rule above all others: know the difference between an asset and a liability, and buy assets. This rule sounds simple, yet it is the reason most people never become financially free. Most people believe an asset is anything that looks valuable or expensive. Rich Dad rejected this definition completely. Instead, He defined an asset as something that puts money into your pocket. A liability, on the other hand, is something that takes money out of your pocket. This definition focuses entirely on cash flow, not appearance or status. Using this definition, many things people proudly call assets are actually liabilities. A car may look impressive, but it requires fuel, insurance, maintenance, and monthly payments. If it takes money out of your pocket, it is a liability. Even your personal home, which many consider their greatest asset, usually takes money out every month through mortgages, taxes, insurance, and repairs, because it drains cash instead of producing it. Rich Dad classified a personal residence as a liability. This idea shocks most people because it challenges everything they were taught about success. The middle class often works harder, earns more, and then uses that extra income to buy bigger liabilities. They buy larger homes, newer cars, and more expensive lifestyles. As a result, their expenses grow along with their income, keeping them trapped. Rich Dad explained that this is why the middle class struggles financially despite earning good salaries. Their money flows into liabilities instead of assets. To make this clearer, Rich Dad described 3 different patterns of cash flow. The poor earn money and spend it immediately just to survive. The middle class earn money, use it to pay liabilities, and then spend what is left. The rich focus on acquiring assets that generate income first. Once assets produce steady cash flow, the rich then use that money to pay for their expenses and luxuries. This difference in cash flow patterns explains why some people grow richer over time while others remain stuck. The rich focus on building and protecting their asset column. Everyone else focuses on their paycheck. When income increases without financial discipline, expenses simply rise to match it. This is why raises, bonuses, and promotions often fail to create lasting wealth. Modern life makes this trap even worse through subscriptions, easy credit, and monthly payment schemes. Small recurring expenses quietly drain future income and reduce financial freedom. Rich Dad warned that financial literacy is the skill that protects wealth. Without it, even high-income professionals can live one paycheck away from disaster. Doctors, lawyers, and executives may earn large salaries but remain financially fragile due to heavy liabilities. True assets, according to Rich Dad, include businesses that do not require your daily presence, income-producing real estate, stocks, bonds, notes, and royalties. These assets generate money whether you are working or not. They create leverage, time freedom, and long-term security. Rich Dad encouraged starting small and staying consistent. You do not need to quit your job or become wealthy overnight. You simply need to begin directing some of your income toward assets instead of liabilities. Each asset you acquire becomes a worker that earns money for you. Over time, those workers can replace your paycheck. Chapter 2 teaches that wealth is not about luck or income level, but about understanding money flow. When you learn to read your financial story through cash flow, your future becomes predictable. If your money flows into liabilities, your future is stress and dependence. If your money flows into assets, your future is freedom. Financial literacy is the mirror that shows you the truth about your financial life. And once you see the truth, you finally gain the power to change it. Chapter 3. Mind Your Own Business. In 1974, Ray Kroc, the founder of McDonald's, was once asked a simple question that revealed how the rich think very differently about business and money. When asked what business he was in, most people expected him to say hamburgers. But Ray Kroc famously replied that his real business was real estate. This insight captures the core lesson of this chapter. Your profession is not your business, and confusing the two keeps most people financially trapped. A profession is what you do for a paycheck, while your business is what you own. That generates income whether you work or not. Most people spend their entire lives focusing only on their profession. They become skilled doctors, engineers, teachers, or executives, but never build anything that works for them financially. When they stop working, their income stops too. Rich Dad explained that the key difference between the rich and everyone else is focus. The rich focus on building and strengthening their asset column, while everyone else focuses on their salary. Poor Dad believed that job security, promotions, and pensions were the safest path in life. Rich Dad believed that true security came from owning income-producing assets. This difference in belief shapes every financial decision a person makes. Many people work hard to buy luxury items that make them look successful. Rich Dad called these items doodads. Luxury cars, expensive watches, designer clothes, and large homes often take money out of your pocket instead of putting money in. Rich Dad did not say you should never enjoy luxury. He said you should let your assets pay for your luxuries, not your labor. The poor and middle class buy luxuries first and hope their income will support them. The rich buy assets first and let the excess income fund their lifestyle. This discipline keeps the rich growing wealth while others struggle to keep up. Minding your own business means using your job only as a source of capital. Your paycheck should be used to build your asset column, not inflate your lifestyle. Every time you receive income, you are making a choice about your financial future. Rich Dad listed the types of assets that belong in a strong asset column. These include businesses that do not require your daily presence, income-producing real estate, stocks, bonds, notes, and royalties from intellectual property. These assets generate cash flow and grow in value over time. What is noticeably absent from this list are cars, personal homes, and consumer goods. These items lose value and require constant spending to maintain. Another powerful shift in this chapter is the move from consumer thinking to investor thinking. Consumers look for discounts and sales on products they want to buy. Investors look for opportunities where assets are undervalued. When most people see a sale in a shopping mall, they think about saving money. When the rich see a market downturn, they think about buying assets at a discount. This difference in perspective creates long-term wealth. Rich Dad advised never quitting your job prematurely. Instead, he encouraged building assets quietly while maintaining steady income. This reduces risk and allows financial skills to develop over time. Even small investments made consistently can grow into powerful income streams. Chapter 3 teaches that financial independence begins when you stop minding everyone else's business. Employers, banks, and governments all benefit when you focus only on your paycheck. True freedom begins when you start building something that belongs to you. Minding your own business is not selfish or greedy. It is the foundation of self-reliance and long-term security. When your assets grow large enough, they begin paying for your life. At that point, work becomes a choice, not a necessity. This chapter reminds us that wealth is not built by earning more, but by owning more. And ownership starts with the decision to mind your own business. Chapter 4. The history of taxes and the power of corporations. Most people believe the most expensive things they will ever buy are houses, cars, or college education. But Rich Dad taught that the most expensive cost in life is actually taxes. A large portion of every working person's life is spent earning money not for themselves, but for the government. In many countries, people work several months each year just to pay income taxes before they see any real benefit from their labor. What makes this situation worse is that most people believe this burden is unavoidable. Rich Dad explained that the rich do not pay less tax because they are dishonest, but because they understand how the rules are written. To understand this, Rich Dad took Robert back in time to the origins of income tax. In the early days of America, in England, there was no permanent income tax. Taxes were introduced only temporarily, usually to fund wars. When income tax was proposed as a permanent system, the public was told it would only affect the rich. This idea was sold as a Robin Hood promise, taking money from the wealthy and protecting the poor and middle class. The public supported it, believing they were voting against the rich, but over time, governments needed more money to operate. The tax burden slowly expanded downward from the wealthy to the middle class and eventually to everyone. What began as a tax on the rich became a tax on working people. Rich Dad explained that while the poor and middle class accepted higher taxes, the rich adapted. They did not protest emotionally or complain endlessly. Instead, they used financial intelligence to find legal ways to protect their money. One of the most powerful tools they used was the corporation. Most people think a corporation is a large building, a factory, or a global brand. Rich Dad taught that a corporation is simply a legal structure, essentially a file folder with documents inside. This legal structure creates a separate entity that operates under different rules than individuals. The most important difference between individuals and corporations is the order in which money flows. An employee earns money, pays taxes first, and then tries to live on what remains. A corporation earns money, pays expenses first, and then pays taxes on what is left. This single difference gives corporations a massive financial advantage. Expenses such as vehicles, travel, meals, equipment, and training can often be paid with pre-tax income. As a result, corporations legally keep more money than individuals earning the same amount. Rich Dad emphasized that this system is not hidden or illegal. It is taught in accounting, tax law, and business ownership. But because most people are never educated about it, they unknowingly remain trapped. To use this system wisely, Rich Dad said people must develop financial IQ. Financial IQ is made up of 4 key skills. The first skill is accounting, which allows you to understand where money is flowing. The second skill is investing, which teaches money how to make more money. The third skill is understanding markets, including supply, demand, and human behavior. The fourth and most powerful skill is understanding the law. The law allows those who understand it to protect assets and reduce taxes legally. Rich Dad often said that if you work for money, you give power to your employer. But if your money works for you, you regain control. Corporations also provide another powerful benefit: protection. When assets are owned personally, they are exposed to lawsuits and creditors. When assets are owned through corporations or legal entities, they are shielded. This is why many wealthy individuals appear to own very little personally. In reality, they control assets through legal structures. This separation reduces personal risk and preserves long-term wealth. Rich Dad did not suggest that everyone should immediately form a large corporation. He encouraged people to begin learning how businesses and tax systems work. Even a small side business can benefit from corporate structures when used correctly. Selling online, freelancing, content creation, or investing can all be organized intelligently. Chapter 4 reveals that taxes are not just a financial issue, but an educational one. Those who lack knowledge pay the highest price. Those who understand the system learn how to operate within it. This chapter is not about avoiding responsibility, but about gaining awareness. Once you understand how taxes and corporations work, you stop being powerless. You begin to see that financial freedom is not about income, but about structure. Chapter 4 teaches that the rich play a different game, using a different set of rules. And if you want to change your financial future, you must first learn the rules of that game. Chapter 5. The rich invent money. Most people grow up believing that it takes money to make money, and they use this belief as a reason to never begin. They say they cannot invest, start a business, or build wealth because they lack capital. Rich Dad taught that this belief is one of the most damaging financial myths ever created. The truth is that money is not found, it is invented. The greatest asset anyone can own is not real estate, stocks, or a large bank balance. The greatest asset is a well-trained mind. A trained mind can create wealth from almost nothing, while an untrained mind can lose millions. Rich Dad explained that financial intelligence is the ability to solve money problems creatively. Most people avoid opportunities not because they are bad, but because fear blocks their vision. Fear of failure, fear of rejection, and fear of looking foolish prevent people from acting. Rich Dad often said that in the real world, it is not the smartest who succeed, but the bold. Making money is not about avoiding mistakes, but about learning from them quickly. To explain this, Rich Dad shared a story from a real estate crash in Phoenix. While most investors were panicking and selling, Rich Dad was actively searching for opportunities. He understood that fear in the market creates discounted assets. Instead of using his own money or relying on banks, he focused on creating smart deals. By negotiating directly with sellers and structuring creative agreements, he was able to control valuable properties with very little cash. In a short period of time, he turned small opportunities into large gains. This was not luck or risk-taking, but financial intelligence in action. Rich Dad said inventing money requires developing specific skills. The first skill is the ability to spot opportunities that others overlook. Most people only see what is obvious and advertised, which means competition is high. The rich look for distressed sellers, inefficiencies, and problems that can be turned into value. The second skill is the ability to raise money. Instead of asking, "Where can I get money?" the rich ask, "How can I structure a deal so money wants to join?" They use partnerships, seller financing, and creative arrangements to fund opportunities. The third skill is the ability to organize intelligent people. Wealth is rarely built alone. Successful investors surround themselves with experts in law, accounting, construction, and management. Knowing how to lead and coordinate these people is more valuable than knowing everything yourself. Rich Dad also emphasized that inventing money does not mean gambling. True risk comes from lack of knowledge, not from opportunity. Those who educate themselves learn how to manage risk instead of avoiding it. In the modern world, opportunities to invent money exist everywhere. Technology, digital platforms, and global markets have lowered the cost of entry. People now invent money through software, online businesses, content creation, and services that solve everyday problems. Every complaint in society represents a potential business opportunity. Every inefficiency is a chance to create value. The difference is not intelligence, but perspective. Most people focus on job security, while the rich focus on opportunity. Rich Dad believed that saving money alone will never make you wealthy. Inflation slowly erodes savings, while assets create growth. Money that sits still loses power, but money that moves intelligently multiplies. Chapter 5 teaches that wealth is created in the mind before it appears in the bank account. If you want to change your financial life, you must first change how you think about money. Inventing money begins the moment you stop asking for permission and start asking better questions. The question is not whether opportunities exist, but whether you are trained to see them. This chapter reminds us that financial freedom is available to anyone willing to learn, think differently, and act boldly. Chapter 6. Work to learn. Don't work for money. Many people believe that becoming highly skilled at one job is the safest path to success. Yet this belief often keeps talented individuals financially limited. Rich Dad taught that most people are only one skill away from great wealth, but they spend their lives perfecting the wrong skill. He often challenged audiences with a simple question: if so many people can make a better product, why do they earn less than those who sell the most? The answer is that wealth is not built by talent alone, but by understanding systems. People who focus only on their craft become excellent employees, while people who understand systems become owners. Poor Dad believed strongly in specialization and academic achievement. He believed that climbing the corporate ladder through expertise would lead to security. Rich Dad believed that specialization creates dependence. Instead, Rich Dad encouraged learning a little about many skills rather than mastering only one. He believed that broad knowledge builds independence and control. Rich Dad deliberately moved Robert through different parts of his businesses. Robert learned about accounting, operations, construction, and management. The goal was not to make him an expert in any one area. The goal was to teach him how businesses actually work. Rich Dad warned that many talented people remain poor because they lack communication skills. Sales, marketing, and negotiation are essential to wealth creation. Even the best product fails if no one knows how to sell it. Fear of rejection keeps many people from learning these skills. Rich Dad believed that learning to sell was learning to communicate value. He encouraged Robert to take jobs not for money, but for skill development. Jobs that paid less but offered learning opportunities were often more valuable in the long run. Each new skill added another layer to Robert's financial intelligence. Over time, these skills combined into powerful leverage. Rich Dad explained that jobs should be viewed as training programs. Instead of asking how much a job pays, he advised asking what it teaches. Learning how to manage cash flow, people, and systems is more valuable than a high salary. These skills transfer across industries and last a lifetime. Most people chase short-term security. The rich focus on long-term capability. A high-paying job without learning leads to stagnation. A lower-paying job with skill growth can lead to freedom. Communication was one skill Rich Dad emphasized repeatedly. Being able to speak clearly, write persuasively, and negotiate confidently multiplies opportunities. Those who can communicate effectively can raise money, build teams, and close deals. Those who cannot remain dependent on others. Another lesson in this chapter is about giving. Rich Dad believed that those who want to receive must first learn to give. Giving creates relationships, goodwill, and opportunity. It also reinforces an abundance mindset rather than a scarcity mindset. Chapter 6 teaches that working only for money limits growth. Working to learn builds long-term power. The most valuable employees become replaceable when their job ends. The most valuable individuals carry their skills wherever they go. This chapter reminds us that education does not end with school. True education continues through experience, failure, and adaptation. When you work to learn, instead of working only for money, you begin building real security. That security does not come from a paycheck, but from what you know and can do. Chapter 7. Overcoming Obstacles. Many people understand the ideas of financial freedom, yet still never take action. They read books, watch videos, and attend seminars, but remain stuck in the same financial position. Rich Dad explained that the biggest obstacles to wealth are not external, but internal. These obstacles live in the mind, shaping decisions, habits, and behavior. Even financially educated people often fail because they cannot overcome these internal barriers. Rich Dad identified fear as the first and most powerful obstacle. Fear of losing money stops people before they even begin. This fear feels logical and protective, but it quietly controls choices. Most people would rather avoid loss than pursue opportunity. As a result, they remain safe, but never free. The second obstacle is cynicism. Cynicism causes people to doubt opportunities instead of exploring them. They say things like it won't work, or it's too risky, without doing proper research. Cynicism masks fear with logic, making an action feel intelligent. The third obstacle is laziness, which often hides behind busyness. People claim they are too busy to invest, learn, or build assets. In reality, they are busy working to support their current lifestyle. Rich Dad said that staying busy is one of the easiest ways to avoid change. The fourth obstacle is bad habits. Most people manage their lives by paying everyone else first and themselves last. Rich Dad taught the opposite habit. He believed in paying yourself first, forcing the mind to find solutions. This habit builds discipline and long-term strength. The fifth obstacle is arrogance. Arrogance is the belief that you already know enough. People who think they know everything stop learning. In reality, what they think they know often holds them back. Rich Dad believed humility opens the door to growth. Admitting ignorance is the first step toward financial intelligence. Each of these obstacles affects decisions differently, but they all lead to the same result. In action, the difference between those who succeed and those who do not is not knowledge, but behavior. Successful people feel fear, doubt, and discomfort, yet move forward anyway. They learn by doing rather than waiting to feel ready. Rich Dad taught that mistakes are not failures. Mistakes are feedback. Those who learn from mistakes grow wiser, while those who avoid mistakes remain stuck. Overcoming obstacles requires emotional discipline. It requires observing emotions instead of obeying them. Fear never disappears, but it can be managed. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the ability to act despite it. This chapter teaches that wealth is not created by perfect decisions. It is created by consistent action over time. Every obstacle overcome strengthens confidence and clarity. Those who persist gain experience that others never acquire. Chapter 7 reminds us that the path to financial freedom is uncomfortable by design. Growth requires stepping beyond familiar limits. Those who conquer their internal obstacles gain control over their financial destiny. The greatest enemy is not the market, the economy, or lack of money. The greatest enemy is the voice that says, "I can't." Once that voice is challenged, real change begins. Chapter 8, Getting Started. Many people say they want to be rich, but very few are willing to take the first real step. Rich Dad explained that getting started is not about having money, but about having direction. The biggest challenge is not the market or the economy, but confusion and hesitation. Most people wait for the perfect moment, but that moment never arrives. Rich Dad taught that clarity comes from action, not from waiting. The first step is deciding to build an asset column. This means committing to acquiring income-producing assets instead of accumulating liabilities. Without this decision, financial progress remains accidental rather than intentional. Rich Dad emphasized the importance of starting small. You do not need to quit your job, borrow heavily, or take massive risks. Small, consistent steps build confidence and financial intelligence over time. One of the most important skills when getting started is learning how to choose assets. Beginners often chase high returns without understanding risk. Rich Dad advised learning the rules of each asset class before investing money. Understanding how something makes money is more important than how much it promises. Mistakes made early are not failures, but tuition paid for education. Rich Dad encouraged making small mistakes while learning, rather than big mistakes later. Those who avoid mistakes avoid growth. Those who learn from mistakes build wisdom. Another key step is building a strong professional network. Success rarely happens in isolation. Learning from people who have already succeeded shortens the learning curve. Mentors, advisors, and experienced investors provide perspective and discipline. Rich Dad also stressed the importance of personal responsibility. Blaming the economy, government, or employers leads nowhere. Taking ownership of financial outcomes creates empowerment. The moment responsibility is accepted, options appear. Discipline is another essential element of getting started. Buying assets consistently, even when it feels uncomfortable, builds momentum. This discipline separates dreamers from achievers. Over time, small actions compound into powerful results. Rich Dad warned against impatience. Wealth is built through process, not speed. Those who rush often make emotional decisions. Those who follow a process build stable foundations. Another lesson in this chapter is the importance of balance. Rich Dad believed life should not be sacrificed in the pursuit of money. Health, relationships, and purpose matter as much as financial success. True wealth supports life rather than consuming it. Chapter 8 teaches that getting started is a mindset shift. It requires choosing learning over comfort and action over fear. The path is not complicated, but it requires consistency. Every asset acquired, no matter how small, strengthens financial independence. Getting started is not about becoming rich tomorrow. It is about becoming smarter today. And with each step forward, the path becomes clearer. Chapter 9. Still want more? Here are some to-dos. After learning how money works, many people ask the same question: what should I do next? Rich Dad believed that knowledge without action has no value. This final chapter is not about theory, but about practical habits that keep financial growth moving forward. The first toto is to keep learning continuously. Financial education never ends because markets, rules, and opportunities constantly change. Those who stop learning fall behind, regardless of past success. Rich Dad encouraged reading books, attending seminars, and studying real investments instead of news headlines. Learning directly from experience is more powerful than passive information. The second to-do is to choose friends carefully. People around you influence how you think about money, risk, and opportunity. Spending time with people who complain, blame, and fear change reinforces limitation. Spending time with people who invest, build, and learn expands perspective. Rich Dad believed conversations shape financial destiny. The third to-do is to master a formula and then learn a new one. Financial success often follows proven patterns. Once a strategy works, use it repeatedly until it no longer does. Then adapt and learn the next formula. Flexibility keeps wealth growing in changing environments. The fourth to-do is to pay yourself first. This habit forces discipline and creativity. By prioritizing asset purchases before expenses, the mind is trained to find solutions. Over time, this habit builds strength and confidence. The fifth to-do is to pay your brokers and advisors well. Talented professionals save time, prevent costly mistakes, and unlock opportunities. Trying to do everything alone limits growth. Knowing when to seek expert help is a sign of financial maturity. The sixth to-do is to be an Indian giver. Rich Dad used this phrase to describe taking money back quickly after investing. The goal is not to recover money emotionally, but to recover capital efficiently. Once the initial investment is recovered, risk decreases and confidence grows. This mindset accelerates wealth creation. The seventh to-do is to use assets to buy luxuries. Luxuries purchased with earned income create pressure and stress. Luxuries purchased with asset income create enjoyment without fear. This discipline separates lasting wealth from temporary success. The eighth to-do is to teach and share what you learn. Teaching reinforces understanding and builds credibility. It also creates new opportunities through connection and trust. The more value you share, the more value returns. The final to-do is to remember that money is only a tool. Money amplifies who you already are. If values are weak, money magnifies weakness. If values are strong, money magnifies impact. Rich Dad believed true wealth includes freedom, time, and purpose. This chapter closes with a reminder that financial freedom is a journey, not a destination. The goal is not to be rich once, but to remain financially intelligent for life. Every choice you make either strengthens or weakens your financial foundation. The lessons of Rich Dad Poor Dad are simple, but not easy. They require discipline, courage, and patience. Those who apply them consistently change their financial future permanently. This book does not promise instant wealth. It offers something more valuable, understanding, and with understanding comes the power to choose a different life. You've just completed the full journey through Rich Dad Poor Dad, and reaching this point already puts you ahead of most people who never take the time to learn how money really works. Creating this audiobook required many hours of reading, structuring, recording, and refining, all with the goal of delivering these lessons clearly and without distraction. If you found value in this content, the simplest way to support this effort is by liking the video, which helps these ideas reach more people who are searching for financial clarity. Sharing this audiobook with a friend, family member, or colleague can make a real difference, because one shift in thinking can change the direction of an entire life. Subscribing to the channel ensures you don't miss future audiobooks, summaries, and practical lessons focused on money, mindset, and long-term freedom. Your support helps justify the time, effort, and consistency required to create content like this at a high standard. Most importantly, remember that knowledge only becomes powerful when it is applied. Take one idea from this book and put it into action, because small steps repeated consistently create lasting change. Thank you for listening, for investing your time, and for being part of a community that values learning over shortcuts.